Yes, I think there would be benefits to codifying our constitution. It would mean that people other than your brilliant selves, who of course understand every wrinkle of it, would have some idea of what it's about. And I'm always amazed when I talk to people who don't really know the difference between the government and the parliament. They don't really know, which prevails if there's a fight. They don't know where the courts fit in. And I think if we had something that people could understand and carry about, it would be very useful. And I think we could get a team of learned people, perhaps Professor Blick would like to lead it, who could try and reduce our current arrangements to something pretty small and portable that actually people could understand. But I think, just as the US Constitution, you might say, well, that's not doing very well at the moment, but at least it's something that can be carried around and easily referred to. European Convention on Human Rights, the same thing. I think we would benefit by having a little document like that we could all refer to.
Lord Young.
Well, I take a slightly different view. As David has said, the United States, Russia, China, all have codified constitutions. It doesn't seem to have stopped a gentle move towards autocracy. If you have a codified constitution, the final decision rests with the judges. If you don't, it rests with Parliament, and I prefer it resting with Parliament, accountable, rather than with judges, who then become liable, as we've seen in America, to political appointments. So, respectfully, note of caution. What really matters is a country where you have constitutionalism, people who respect the conventions, yes. A country where people don't protest if they don't like the result of an election. In case President Trump is watching, protest peacefully. So I think what we have in this country is an acceptance, and that's far more important whether the Constitution is written or codified or whatever. People accept if you lose an election, you get out of number 10 Downing Street, and that's it.
With equal respect to Lord Young, because I share a room with him, and I'd like to think he's a very good friend, a codified constitution does not have to be dominated by the judges. You could look at countries like the Netherlands or Finland or Sweden, which, like us, are political constitutions, not judicial constitutions. It hasn't stopped them writing it down. And in fact, if you think there's any great mystery about the Westminster system that makes it impossible to reduce it to writing, look at all the former colonies, now members of the Commonwealth, which now have written constitutions of their own, which are quite widely understood.
I disagree with both of them.
Good.
It's always a good idea to have a bit of disagreement. We surprisingly well muddle on with our largely unwritten constitution. I have American grandchildren, great nieces, great nephews, and so on. So I follow the American Constitution with particular interest and a great deal of concern. What worries me about the American Constitution, it's set in stone of hundreds of years ago. So the gun law, as an example, nobody can change the gun law because it's the First or Second Amendment. So I think there's a grave danger in codifying, and what will happen to everybody in 100 years' time.
Yeah, thank you. Professor Blick, briefly on this?
One point I would say is I think we've already got some of the bits of a codified constitution in our system. I would see an argument for making that a bit clearer, and I'll give you one example. The ability of the House of Commons to override, and the people next to me will know this, to override the House of Lords. In most instances, if the House of Commons wants to get its way on something, then it can in the end. After I think it takes a year or so, but they can eventually override the House of Lords, and the House of Commons can pass any law it wants, except it can't extend the life of a parliament by beyond 5 years. And that's a very important protection for democracy. And that's what looks quite similar to me to the kind of provision you have in a codified constitution for a special amendment provision for things which are deemed to be really important. Now, I think if we can have that to protect the length of a parliament, to protect democracy, why can't we have a few more rules a bit like that, protected perhaps in a similar way? So I'd be relying on the three wonderful people next to me to actually protect our system under the kind of codified constitution I'm advocating. And it wouldn't have to have a lot of things in it, but I think I could easily make a suggestion of a few if needed.
Thank you.